Now that we've done a lot of work on setting up code for a boss fight that we're going to be working on here, before we move on to the art, animation, and juice department, I think it's good to take a moment and go back over the majority of the code that we've made in this entire series so far, and make sure that it's not a total mess, because we have a lot of stuff that is just kind of hanging around at this point. Like this. Is it very badly organized? Not necessarily, but it could be better. So let's go through and make sure that everything is properly organized here. First and foremost, the begin play of our player character. We have a lot of stuff just hanging off of this, and it's kind of weird, and it's just, I don't know, don't love it. Most important thing to get started with is just making sure that we select some nodes, press the C key to add a comment, and we'll give that a name, and we'll call that begin play. Everything that runs in begin play is going to be contained within this section, within this comment of code, so that we can easily at a glance see, oh, this is begin play. I want to see something in begin play. We can go right over here. But then within that, we're still going to add in more comments. This is set up initial bars, like the gravity scale and the initial transform. And if we want to have anything else in the future, this is where we add it into. We can give these comments different colors as well. So to begin play itself, we can maybe make like a yellow color, and then within that we can make these like green colors so that they are a little easier to differentiate from each other as well. Then we've got a bunch of things that set up bindings. So we also organize these, and instead of making this one very long string of just nodes after nodes after nodes, I'm going to add in a sequence node. And this is just purely for visual purposes, so that we can put them a little bit more clearly under each other. So we're going to set up this binding here, and then we add one more thing into the sequence, and that's going to set up a binding as well. And now these can very easily just be moved in such a way that they exist vertically under each other, exactly like this. And now that they're all under each other, it's first and foremost good to encapsulate these individual sections in comments as well, so that we know which nodes belong to which section of binding setup. So just comment all those. We'll give them names in a moment, and then we can line these up as well, like this. And then everything is encapsulated in the larger begin play comments. This is bind on HP update, bind on player destroyed, and this is bind on movement mode change. So bind movement mode changed. Then we have all of the jumping code for the player. So we can just encapsulate that in a comment, call it jump, move it over here. It's fine. This stuff is the jump dash, which also is a little messy, visually speaking. But this is part of platforming too. So let's call this air dash. And then this is on event landed, comments landed. And even if we don't do anything about making these a little bit less noodly, making these a little less all over the place, the fact that they're just encapsulated in some comments now makes it immediately more obvious that, okay, I'm looking for a specific thing, it's right around there, and this is everything to do with it. There's no question that any nodes that exist here are related to anything that is happening here, just because we've got literally a couple of rectangles around it. Now, these things are both related to player death, so we'll make here kill player, and this will be reset player, and then both of these comments together I can comment around again, selecting them both, make a comment, and we'll call this player death. Then we have a bunch of input stuff here, which once again we're going to per event just put a comment around. So comments, this is jump, and that's going to probably be good to have the air dash, which also is input related actually, and our jump event itself be close to. So let's move these two both over into a position where that makes sense. Then event landed can move back up here, and we're going to lay this out in a way that makes some amount of sense. So this is the jump event. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the inputs on top of each other, and then anything that responds to those inputs is just going to go to the right of that set input event. So in this case, we have the jump player, which does a couple of basic things, among which is call player jump, which then exists directly next to it. This is damage, so this probably goes close to where our player death is, because those are closely related, obviously. And this is input move. So we select all that, point it as move, just move it aside from now. And this, I think, is camera inputs. So camera inputs. And we can move both of those into our stack of input events. And we only have this one left, which is the bounce attack, which is part of jumping as well. So let's call this bounce attack. And we just put that in our row here that has to do with jumping. And suddenly we have a much more organized blueprint without actually moving around and organizing any of the individual nodes. Simply through the sheer matter of putting some rectangles around it, things have instantly improved in readability. Make things a little bit better by removing all these like double noodles. I find them to be distracting and ugly. So it's generally just a little nicer to have two of the same node. This functionally doesn't do anything different than having two of those noodles. It just, as your blueprints grow, getting in the habit of doing this instead of having one reference to it that goes all over the place and creates a bunch of lines all over your screen is just a little bit easier to keep track of. And then things like this, like and dash, there's no reason that this line needs to cross these other lines and make this visually noisy. We can just put this one up here. This node doesn't even get used anymore. Don't know why it still exists. This can just be a straight line. No real need for that to like go up and down all over the place. And once we start implementing all that as well, things do very quickly start becoming a lot less chaotic and noisy. And just making sure that you generally don't have too many lines that intersect with each other. There's no good reason for this to exist here where these lines intersect, which on a large scale does make things harder to read and more difficult to follow along. Just move it down here. There's no intersecting lines and it's going to be a lot clearer what everything is connected up to. Then of course we also have, instead of just events, a bunch of things that are simply just small functions. And there might be some things in these events that could definitely do with being functions. Some things can't exist in functions, like these latent nodes that start at one point and end at some point in the future. Those need to exist in your event graph. Delays, same thing. Those need to exist in your event graph. Timelines, once again, can't be in a function. Needs to be in the actual event graph. This bounce attack, why even is this an event? There's a couple of very quick little nodes. No real reason for this to be an event. Nothing about this requires it being an event. So we can just convert to a function, which we can right-click on the event, convert event to function. Now it doesn't clog up our event graph anymore, and it just gets added to our function list over here. Functions can be given categories as well, which is really quite nice. So these functions over here are all to do with HP. So we can give this category stats, and then one of these vertical little lines to make a subcategory HP. And now we can see I have a category for stats and a subcategory for HP. I can now just add other things to that. So subtract HP, get HP, and same thing here. Set respawn transform. No reason for that to exist here in my event graph. It's just a little like over the top. It's just taking up space, right? So let's just convert that to a function. Player death. Again, nothing about this necessarily is benefiting from being an event. So we convert it to a function. And that way we can easily organize them with those categories. And we don't even need a lot of this. This event damage is actually an event. We can't make this into a function. A couple of nodes given after it, that's fine. Don't need to specifically make a function for this. And here's some of the stuff that we're doing. We rely on these delay nodes, so probably fine to have this all be in the event graph. Player destroyed. Why is this an event? We can just call this on player destroyed and turn this into a function. And if it starts screaming at you because it apparently is connected to some other nodes here that aren't able to go into functions, sometimes it does that. You can just disconnect this, select all of these, and collapse them to a function instead. And we can call this player death. And then instead of directly binding this event, because now we're trying to bind something that we've turned into a function, and we've been just creating events and hooking them up into these binding nodes, but we can just create an event, and we can take any function that matches the parameters that we're looking for and say, hey, bind this function instead of it needing to always be an event. So in this case, that would be player death response. Just do need to give it an input here, even if we're not using it. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to use the create event node for it. So create event. Now that we have done that, we can see we have player death response. And that significantly shrinks down our blueprint, footprint for this. And at this point, we don't even necessarily need to make this into like the sequence, because now it's a lot more compact. We just have a couple of binding nodes that bind to functions that exist in here. And only the things that really need to exist in the event graph now are remaining here in the event graph. Everything else we stuff into functions. And that's just the player. If we want to do this, we also probably should go into, for instance, this octopus boss, which has a fair bit going for it. For instance, this event tick, which we don't need anymore. There's not that much happening here, so it's not that big of a deal to just have this kind of hanging out. But if we go back into its attack that we made here, it's a bit messy, isn't it? There's a lot of stuff just going all over the place, and just, it's not really a good time. Let's just section this out a little bit. This is just pick random tentacle. We're not using these nodes down here anymore, so let's delete those. And then everything pretty much up to here, I would say up to get location away from tentacle. All of this probably can be one function, because all that then does is get us the tentacle location. Maybe even include this all the way up to here. We can right click on that and collapse to function, and that is get tentacle attack location. And then we set it to that tentacle attack location, and then we add it to our array, or our map rather. And this entire thing has just visually been simplified so much. Of course, this is still a little bit of a mess, so we want to organize this a little bit more, because there's a lot of wires going all over the place. And that's the next thing that I want to take a look at, is when you do have a lot more math going on and just things connected up to each other and these things going all over the place, it starts just to look messy, and that's not great. Especially, again, if you look at this here, not a good time. Let's clean up both of these functions as well. Number one is just spacing things out more, man. Just making things a little bit more spaced out really, really does help. Putting things in logical locations also does help. This is going up here, and this is going down there. It makes a lot more sense from a readability perspective. These are just laid out in the opposite way. Then these get actor locations. It's kind of just annoying to have these two little yellow wires that then also have to cross around. So here we have them the other way around, where you just put this into B, this into the A, and that makes this just a whole lot less messy to look at. Compact all that together, put that toward the end here. There we go. Just a couple nodes moved around. Look at how much more readable everything going on here is. You're going to have some wires crossing. That's just going to happen. I suppose it is doable to mix this up in such a way that we have less wires crossing than we did before. But there's going to be some of it happening. Not much you can do about that. But spacing things out in a way that they at least are clear as to where which crossings are going. Now, get location away from whatever is a visual mess. And the most important part here is that the desired location is getting hooked up to like 4 different return nodes all over the place. Input parameters can just be called as if they are local variables. So if I just get the desired location, anything that is hooked up to this, I can just hook into this instead. So that's going to immediately take care of a bunch of these very ugly green lines that just go all over the place and make this thing look unnecessarily chaotic. There we go. Immediately, a lot of the lines are fixed. Again, here, even if it's just a short run, we can replace that with it being as a local variable. Here, we're going to add some redirect nodes so that we can have this line like nice and cleanly going under everything else that is going on with it. Because there is just a little bit happening here, and I would like these nodes to exist down here. Again, don't be afraid to just create a little bit of room so that your logic can fit within the area before the branching nodes. That way you can just very easily look from left to right. Okay, this is what it's checking for this branch, and then doing this. Just lining things up so that they don't have like weird wiggly lines all over the place also massively helps. And then this, instead of this going down all the way there, it probably helps to have this kind of on level with the rest. And then here we do just have a bunch of noodles that go all over the place, which is not great. Since it's a local variable, I can also, instead of noodling it everywhere, just add in multiple nodes that represent that array. First and foremost, will already clean things up massively. And again, just creating a little bit more room around everything, it does wonders, man. I know that I'm saying it over and over and over again, but it really bears just repeating. And for any of these long lines, again, that you do need to be physically connected, it's good to make a redirect node and just make them go all the way over or all the way under all the rest of your logic. Because that way, even if you're not adding in comments to this, which you definitely still should do, they also kind of work as a dividing line of, okay, this is one section of code, and this is the next section of code, which just separating them with some distance, once again, does wonders of making them more readable. Because the code that's happening here isn't that complex. There's not that much happening. It's just because it's all so stuffed together, it seems a lot more complicated and a lot more bothersome than it actually is. Especially if we just move these a little bit to the right, so it feels like we're actually stepping through, first checking this, then checking this, then checking this. Just look at the difference between the clarity of what you see up here, even without it being commented, and the mess that we have down here. This is, with a couple of nodes switched around, the same code. What would you prefer to look at? This top one or this nightmare? I think next time it is a good moment to dive back into Blender and take our boss fight that we have and make it a little less super ugly and just placeholdery. And if you want to support this type of content and get access to all the project files for all of my tutorials, you can become a member here on YouTube or a Patreon. And thanks to my Cave students, tier supporters, Oigu and Earl Monseval Erno, and my Cave Digger tier supporters, Classy Crustaceo, the Joshimator, Mauricio Farias, and Cheng the Dude.